Hi and welcome to Car Mechanical, and this is part 0 of the Project Oynx cheap budget roller paint job video series I'm doing. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start looking around the LDA3, and the way I'm going to do this video, I'm going to look over the issues with it, and I'm also going to go over the issues of how I started to carry out the job last September, October. So first thing I'm going to show you is we're going to look around the car, we're going to look at all of the issues with the paint and the rust. And you can see them on camera, and I'll mention some of them, but the bottom of the doors have rust issues, the wheel arches have rust issues. If we come up and we look towards the roof area, just above the windows, there is rust just next to where the roof rails go. Suspect water ingress has caused that. Again, this wheel arch is something I've dealt with and I've painted before, but I probably didn't do a good enough job of putting enough layers of paint or dealing with the rust. This part of the back panel had a dent in, so we're going to deal with that. The bumper is just old and cracked, so what needs to happen with the bumper is it just needs to be covered with the paint anyway. The front bumper, this lower part of the plastic trim, you know, the greys and the blacks or whatever, they're all multicoloured. There's peeling off top coat here on the driver's side, and we've got the same rusting area too, so I think water gets in under the roof rails. If we look at the wing, that's multi-tonal, and you know, nothing's a solid colour on the car, so the whole idea with the project is I don't want to spend too much on it, because of the car isn't worth too much, but mechanically it's sound, and I've put a lot of time and money as such into it, but not so much that I want to spend, you know, a couple of grand on a paint job. So what we're looking at here is where I've sanded back and done some rust treatment and some priming treatment on the area around the number plate and the rear arch, and then here is where I've sanded back by a dent that was put in it, and that's happened when the previous owner had it. And it was always something that bugged me, but it was always something I didn't want to deal with because of it was mostly okay, but then it slowly got worse, and doing the paint job, I decided it was an area to deal with. So what I ended up doing with this was I used my orbital sander to sand it back as much as possible, and also used my Dremel tool to get into the bits that the orbital couldn't get into, because of this shows you a lot of where this area of the profile of the car was just completely messed up. So I used a bunch of miniature sort of sanding bits, and I get it down to as much bare metal as possible. Now you could do this by hand with sandpaper, but I find when I hand sand stuff I go far too rough, so I prefer the machines because I get a lot smoother finish out of everything. And okay, that's not great, but trust me, if I did it by hand I'd have put so many scratches into that part of the bodywork. And then after this I fill it. So I'm really not the best person to be talking about filler, but the way that I do this, I just kind of put it on, sand it off, put it on, sand it off until we get that quite right. So this is my first layer of filler. I give it about an hour, and then I take it off with the orbital sander, and you can see as you take it off and you build it up and you take it back down, you start getting towards the contour of the body shape of the car, and that was literally just by using the orbital sander and letting it take the filler off and just sort of follow the lines of what the car probably should be. Now it's not ideal, there are probably bits that if I was a bit more patient and spent more time I could have done better, and some bits needed redoing because some of the filler fell out, and even towards the end I didn't quite get it right, but I'm happy with how this was at the end of it, because of it really wasn't great, and you know, considering you're going to paint the whole car, you may as well try and sort this area out, and the top of the filler is only about £5. So once this was all done, it got rust treated. Now this was one of my mistakes I made, which is why I have to make other videos and come back to it. I rust treated it, and I wiped off the rust treatment and sanded it back to get it flat, and that probably lost the protection. So what you've seen now is I've primed it and I've painted it, and right at the end of the video I'm going to show you some of the issues that are caused for myself. You know, here it looks fine, it actually looks great and it's blended in much better, and actually having finished this, there's still a little bit of a crease, which you can see from that angle, but it's not as bad as it was. So we're going to go across to the roof, and we're going to use the orbital sander, and you can see these sort of pitted rust marks. Now what I think that is from, as I mentioned, you've got these roof rail bars which can come out to put a roof rack into. And I think over time water gets down there, maybe a little chip or something, and it just lifted up and it got into that sort of top part of the pillar. So after I sanded it back, I rust treated it, and then it got primed, and then it got painted. However, I probably should have taken these rails out, which is what I do when I properly do the job. And long term, I'm actually thinking I'm going to fill them. But that's it prepped. We prime it and then we paint it. Now, another reason some of the things in this video go wrong, the time of year I did it in the UK is quite important to mention. I did this in September, October in my evenings after I got home from work. So I was losing daylight, it was getting colder, it was damp, and it even rained during some of these bits. So it might not be obvious in some of these pictures, but you might be able to see some of the water drips that are just getting onto that paint. And because I wasn't able to put on enough paint and let it dry, and put on enough layers after that, I think some of this rust came back. Now again, same for the bonnet, there were some issues with stone chips and rust that have come onto the car. There was a little big stone dent as such, so that was filled and that was levelled out. These areas were sanded back, and then I primed everything and painted that. And then we come to April 2016, and you can see on the bonnet and you can see on the side the rust has come back. So if you join me for part 1 of the bodywork patching, we'll actually get into it and we'll do everything properly. But I thought this video was quite important to make and to show you, because it shows you the mistakes I've made and it shows you the result of the mistakes. So learn from my mistakes, and if you, the one big piece of advice, do this when it's dry. Don't worry about putting it off for a week or two. Do this when it's dry and it will make your life so much easier. Okay guys, thank you for watching. I'm going to put a link on screen to the other part now. That's for part 1 of the bodywork. I'm going to put links in the description down below. Please like, share and subscribe on the channel if you did enjoy this and on the video. And please leave any comments in the comment section down below.